If you are reading this, then I am no longer alive. I was recently adopted by Bill and Irene Morris, but I know something. They want to sell me for organs. All the children disappear from their beds. Talk to Miss Larkin. On my first day at the foster home, I found this note under my bed's mattress. The kids who had been adopted with me were running around and I stood there, frozen. My new parents, Bill and Irene, seemed strange to me. When I first met them, they were silent and quiet, as if they were hiding something. The door creaked open and Irene poked her head in and called me for breakfast. I quickly shoved the note back under the mattress and hurried downstairs to find out what was going on. As I was going down the stairs, I noticed the closet door was ajar, so I decided to look inside. In the dim light, I could make out several cots, each with their names painted on it: Johnny, Liz, Annie. But there was no one with such names among the adopted children. Whose beds are these? I immediately remembered the text of the terrible note. Back in the orphanage, I was told about people who sell adopted children for organs. I have to call the police while we're still alive. I knew the phone was only in parents' room. I have to get there somehow. My parents strangely looked at me as we ate breakfast. It was as if they understood that I had discovered their secret. I got up from behind the table and told them I wasn't feeling well, but I actually went to their bedroom. Closing the door behind me, I immediately grabbed the phone and dialed the police number. Suddenly, something creaked behind me, as if there was someone else in the room. I fearfully turned around, but there was no one here. A voice said, "Hello, it's police station." I whispered all about the strange parents, the note and the costs. Do something! We'll soon be sold for organs. But the cop apparently thought it was a hoax and hung up. Then I got really scared. No one can help me. I decided to pull myself together. So if the police need proof, I'll find it. I'll start with a visit to Miss Larkin mentioned in the note. That same day, I decided to find her. There wasn't a soul in the area, but suddenly I noticed an old abandoned house. The door was open and a sign on it said, Miss Larkin. I cautiously stepped inside. The house was terribly dirty. I went to the back of the room and there, in a chair, in the middle of the cats, sat a terrible old woman with sparkling eyes. I said Bill and Irene were my parents, and the old woman grinned. It turns out that they already had a boy, Johnny, who also visited her sometimes. He said that his new parents braced his developed lungs. And then he disappeared. Seems like he was sent to a special school in Boston. Disappeared? So the note wasn't lying. I have to save all the children. When I got back, I noticed a guy my own age standing outside the house. His name was Rich, and he arrived this morning while I was away. He was adopted too. His parents died in a car accident, and he had long dreamed of finding a family again. I was ashamed to say that my real parents just left me and went somewhere in Vegas. But Rich seemed like a nice guy, so I told him. Then I realized I had to warn him. Terrible things are happening in this house, Richie. But he just laughed and thought I was joking. Then I called him into the room as I wanted to show him the note, but it had disappeared somewhere. I was desperate. But Rich said he believed me and was willing to help. But if we were in danger, he must make sure of it. First, we found in the internet that special school where Johnny allegedly went to study. But there was no one named Morris. So I suggested we search the house and we snuck into Bill's office. There were a lot of surgical instruments, some receipts, and cash calculations. And on the table, there was a notebook with the children's weights and heights. Do you believe me now? But Rich said it still didn't mean anything. We started arguing when we heard someone coming up the stairs and ran into another room. Rich said he'd had enough, and he didn't like the idea right away. We'd better stop doing this. I knew Rich wouldn't help me, but all my fears were confirmed. I had to run away from here today. Before dinner, Irene sternly called me into the living room. I was sure they already know that Richie and I had been going through their office. I went down the stairs without feeling my legs and found Richie standing helplessly in the middle of the living room. A nasty old man was patting him on the cheek. My parents introduced me and said that an elderly couple had come to visit us. They are their old acquaintances, and I must make friends with them. All evening, they asked us about our hobbies, patted us on the head and admired us, saying look how healthy they are. I was very scared. Why are they so interested in our health? After dinner, I saw how the old people give to our foster parents a package. It was clearly money. They sold us for organs. I waited until everyone was asleep and went to Richie. We have to run right now without waiting for the night. I burst into his room, but he wasn't there. Suddenly, someone put a hand on my shoulder. My stomach went cold with horror. Oh no, it was Irene. I started yelling, asking where is Richie? But she calmly replied that he had a nightmare and asked to sleep in their bed. In horror, I remembered the note again. The children disappear from the parents' bed. Irene strangely smiled and added that I could see it myself. I didn't want to go into the bedroom, but I had to make sure Richie was okay. I cautiously went into their room. Rich was indeed in the bed, peacefully sleeping. Maybe I'm really getting myself in mood. I felt relieved, so I crawled under the covers to him and immediately fell asleep. When I woke up the next morning, Richie wasn't there. I looked around and realized it wasn't my parents' bedroom. Suddenly I heard footsteps, and a long shadow appeared in the doorway. I immediately pretended to be asleep. I felt someone bending over me and opened my eyes a little. It was the same old lady who visited us the day before. I screamed. What do you need and where is Richie? The old lady hesitantly said that Richie was gone. She wanted to reach out to me, but I immediately rushed out of the room. I ran into the kitchen and saw the old man there. He was holding a bloody knife, and something that looked like a human liver was lying on the table. I backed away and wanted to throw something at him, but something wet came under my hand. Oh no, it's Richie's t-shirt. It's covered in blood. I darted in the opposite direction and ran to the second floor. The old couple was coming up behind me. Judy, come to us. Don't be afraid. Then I rushed to the bathroom and climbed out through the window on the ledge down. I'm almost free, but it was too late, and a car with Irene and Bill came around the corner. I ran through the garden, but they grabbed me and dragged me into the house. No, you won't get my organs! I was screaming, trying to get away. Then I heard Richie's voice. He was standing in the middle of the living room, all safe and sound. Richie began to reassure me, saying that he was now the adopted son of my grandparents. Irene and Bill helped him find a family, but I still didn't believe it. What about the knife, the t-shirt, the bundle of money? The old couple smiled and said that Irene and Bill were helping those who were not officially allowed to adopt children. They take the children home and then transfer them to such families. The bundle was a thank you pie, and the knife was bloody because the old man was cutting up the steak for dinner. The t-shirt was stained by Richie himself in the morning when he opened the pomegranate syrup. At first, the old couple wanted to take only Richie, but seeing how we became friends, they decided to adopt me as well. But what about the missing Johnny? And all those surgical instruments? Bill good-naturedly laughed. It turned out that the boy wasn't lost. He now has a new family. They live nearby, and he was given to swimming. But their neighbor, Miss Larkins, has a very bad temper. That's why they didn't tell her anything. As for the instruments, Bill is a surgeon and all the instruments are from the hospital. Irene hugged me and apologized for sneaking us to the old couple's house last night. They just didn't want to wake us up. We slept so sweetly. I sipped my tea in silence for a while, trying to make sense of what happened, and then I burst into tears and asked everyone for forgiveness. Irene and Bill didn't look so bad now. They hugged me, and the old couple gave me a handkerchief. Apparently, I was so offended by my parents who abandoned me that I completely stopped believing that someone could take care of me. But now I understand there are still people who don't wish you harm. And you just have to learn to accept their help.